What's up, beautiful people? Listen, Sindafam, welcome to the channel. So today we're going to be checking this video, and it's titled "Race Baiting White Liberal Gets Owned by Intelligent Black Conservative." Interesting. I'm excited to check this one out. Hear what they've got to say. Let's check it out.
That is the purest idea of white supremacy. No, it's not.
That is not a racist.
Are you crying? Are you going to cry?
I'm sorry. It's your event. Go ahead and speak.
That's right. That's right. You're talking over a black man. Come on.
If we were both owning houses in a similar neighborhood and I tried to sell my house and you tried to sell your house, my house would statistically be valued higher than yours.
That's a theory.
Because I have lighter skin than you.
What house do you live in?
Because I have lighter skin than you.
According to who?
I'm sorry?
According to who?
The skin color or?
If you were working at a bank and you were giving out loans, would you give out a loan to a white man and not a black man?
That's what redlining is, you donuts.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope all's good wherever you are. In this video, we have Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum. I'm sure a lot of you follow him at a Turning Point USA event, absolutely cooking a they-them pronoun person. Let's get into it.
I used to not always be conservative, or at least know that I was. Larry Elder hurt my feelings. He started saying all that truth. I was feeling some type of way. Oh no, he can't be right. Dudes on the police department hurt my feelings because I was all over Barack Obama. That was my dog. Smart. He was black, even though he ain't black.
How do you mean he's not black?
What part? Hold on.
No. How do you mean Barack Obama's not black?
How is he black? Give me an example.
His father's black.
So that makes him black?
Yeah.
What about his mama?
His mother's white.
So that makes him black? Sit down real quick. Let me school you real quick.
Okay, go ahead and school me.
Okay, is white supremacy, are you a white supremacist?
No.
It's white supremacy that says that a black man and a white woman together make a black kid. That is the purest idea of white supremacy. No, it's not.
You said it's not a racist.
Are you crying? Are you going to cry? Please sit down.
We are not a racist country.
Please sit down.
The dominant social order says
because
white
supremacy says that. That's why you hold the truth to that.
That's the dominant social order
no,
of the country.
my son.
You said is not
listen,
racist.
Don't talk over me, please.
I'm sorry. It's your event. Go ahead and speak.
That's right. That's right. You're talking over a black man. Come on. With all due respect, okay? With all due respect, Barack Obama isn't black because he have a drop of black in him. My kids are not black. My wife is white. I'm black. They're biracial. They're not black.
Yes.
See, what happened in history is that if a black man or a white man or any other race had a drop of anything else, and it eliminated them from being pure white. Mm-hmm. It's called a one-drop rule. If a white person had a baby with a black person, they did not want the white race to not be pure, so you defaulted to the other race. Today, they practice the same thing. What makes my son black? He is 50-50. He's half white, half black. Mm-hmm. There's no way that you call him black unless you want the white race to be pure. And I think that's what that is. 50-50 genes. That boy is 50-50. He don't have to walk around and say black. He don't have to walk around and say white. He's biracial. And it bothers me when people still hold that racist ideology. If a white person have a baby with a Hispanic person, that person is Hispanic. Why is that? Because the white race needs to be pure. It cannot have any fault. It cannot have any mixing. They used to call it back in the day race mixing. That's why we have racism today in some capacities, is because of that very reason.
As we've seen countless times in these videos, when they don't get their way, they just yell and try to get louder and shout. The nerve of this person to try and tell Brandon Tatum what it means to be black. And it's interesting what he talks about here about the one drop rule. I just found out about this, I want to say about 2 years ago. I was reading up on it. And back when they still had slaves in America, a lot of the slavers or slave owners, whatever the proper word is, if they would have had a child with a black woman, because a lot of them did because they were working there, that child would be considered black and not white in order to keep the race pure. So you might be able to work in the house and not outdoor. You can serve stuff inside, but they would not treat you as an equal and they would not treat you as white. Again, like Brandon Tatum just said here, it was to keep the race pure. Let's get back to it.
What's your race?
I'm biracial.
Absolutely true. And it's the fact that these people just want it to be one-sided, and they say they want to kill racism, they don't want racism to be alive, but they fight so hard to keep it alive. They fight so hard to preserve a particular part of it, to make it alive, and they still push for it or say it. If one of your parents is white and one of your parents is black, it is biracial. It is simple. There is nothing like you picking one side. It is both sides, and the both parents came together for a reason. So preserving that is what they should keep it. But no, they always want to make it like, you have to pick one side, which is most likely the black, and they want that side of history to just continue and feed into your mind to say, yes, pick one side, and it has to be the one that is the most common one because they love it that way. It's not making sense. At this point, people should actually grow up and start learning history. People who say they want to fight racism, they should start fighting racism from the root, and not to preserve, to keep it alive. Because I mean, lots of people hide behind to say they are fighting for racism, but they are not, because they are still preserving or keeping some part of it, which is not making sense. But yeah, this is interesting. It's just that sometimes some of these leftists or liberals, when they don't have their way, they start screaming, they yell and say every time they interrupt you or interrupt the conversation. Is not making sense. But yeah, let's go on.
Biracial. That's real funny. That's real funny.
What did that mean?
You just said that your son is biracial.
What's your mix?
I'm Hispanic.
And what?
And white.
Okay, so you go by white?
I go by mixed.
So why is Obama black then?
Well, I mean, I'm also Hispanic. I'm white and Hispanic. There's multitudes.
But you're mixed. You're not just Hispanic.
Let's get back to the
Would you
issue.
be the first Hispanic, whatever?
I mean,
If you want, if you feel like it.
Whatsoever.
So, are you Hispanic?
Can we get back to the?
No. Will you qualify for a minority benefits?
So you said that the United
Would you
States.
qualify for minority benefits?
So
Sure,
you
answer.
no, because I'm not. No.
Why not?
Okay, so
You're Hispanic.
So you said that the United States is not a racist country. However, the dominant social order
Answer the
imposes
question.
that white has to be pure, which you acknowledge comes from the United States. Which
You
is
are
not a racist
perpetuating
country.
that, not me.
Which is not, but we're not a racist country, like you said.
Do you believe there's things in this country you can do that I can't do?
Yes.
Name it.
Statistically, if
No. You can do that I can't do.
oh well, then nothing. However, we kind of are dealing with lots of numbers and people. If we were both owning houses in a similar neighborhood, and I tried to sell my house and you tried to sell your house, my house would statistically be valued higher than yours.
That's a theory.
Because I have lighter skin than you.
What house do you live in?
Because I have lighter skin than you.
How big is your house?
I don't. I'm sorry.
How big is your house?
I have no comments on that. That's not important. That's a non sequitur.
It's not. Is your house bigger than mine?
If we had similar houses in a similar neighborhood and we both tried to sell our houses, statistically, my house would be valued higher than yours because you have darker skin than me.
According to who?
I'm sorry.
According to who?
The skin color, or
If you were working at a bank and you were giving out loans, would you give out a loan to a white man and not a black man?
that's what redlining is. You donuts.
All right, let me explain redlining. Let me explain redlining for you guys. I was trying to make a point there. It was kind of comical. However, this is a really good book for you to read as well. Thomas Sowell wrote a book called Discrimination and Disparities. Right? Just because there's disparity don't necessarily mean that there's discrimination. I can go down the list. Do you think that school districts are discriminating against men? No, they're not. Women just decide to work in schools more so than men do. Do you think that the NFL is discriminating against white men? No, it isn't. Just so happened that black people athleticism plays a role in black people playing in sports in the NFL. That does not mean because there's a disparity that there's discrimination. Now, redlining. I did my research on redlining. There is no unequivocal proof that the reason why loans were given or not given is just because people were black. So in theory, this is pretty much what it's supposed to be. That certain areas in our country, banks would not allow or they would not give certain loans to certain areas, right? Because of multiple.
Before we go on, you see how the student is countering themselves. He understands or he knows he is mixed. he now accepted his mix, but he, going by statistics, wants to say if you're black or if you're mixed, one of your parents is black and the other is white, then you have to be black. But what alarms me is the fact that most of the students that what they are being taught in school is to think just one side of history, and they just don't want to teach them the facts. They always want to teach them a certain or a portion size of the history narrative, just because that is beneficial for them to learn, which is not even making sense. Because obviously it is going by what he's learned, he's been taught, or he's heard, or he's read from a book. So I mean, this is what he's been exposed to, so this is the knowledge he leans or he feeds on. And it's the fact that they don't want to learn something different, or they don't want to learn something new. I always urge people, if you're learning history, learn the entirety of history. Don't pick and choose. And that is what many schools are doing, or are teaching people. They're picking and choosing and teaching or telling people the side that is beneficial, which is not even making sense. We understand that there are lots of things that happened in the history, and many people are not proud of, or many of those things are not the proudest moment. But learning those things, knowing those things would help you, because you don't want, or nobody wants history to repeat itself, especially with the not so nice things or the bad things that happened in history. Nobody wants it to repeat itself, but it seems like there are some people that want to keep or preserve those negative things, or those things that happened in history. They want to preserve it and they want to keep it alive, so they have to keep it running or up and running, which is not making sense. That is why now many schools are not teaching history, or they be like they want to control what is being taught. If at all history is going to be taught, then it has to be what they want you to know, not what you need to know. But this is interesting. Let's go on.
Areas, right? Because of multitude of reasons. Whether it's a dangerous area, they wouldn't give mortgages to dangerous areas that are run down, all of the above. And just so happened in some of these areas, there were minority areas. Now, people take that and say the banks were racist. But if you look at the institutions, the bank institutions, if they had higher qualifications or unrealistic qualifications for black people, unlike white people, then you would see that the rate of not being able to pay your loan, right? If the defaulting on your loan and different things like that, you would see it being higher amongst whites and not blacks if they had extra qualifications for blacks. And that's not what happened. Now, I don't know if it was racist or not. I don't believe that it was, because I don't believe there's a correlation. Look at the black banks and look at the white banks. Black banks rejected black people at the same rate or higher than white banks did. Where's the correlation? You know, where's the outcry on that? And so moving forward, the idea from one side says that they only did this because they were black. On another side, they had ramifications for people not taking care of their communities, not having good credit and the like. So you have the two factions that have a difference of opinion. And you go to move forward and you say, how does redlining affect black people today? You know, I grew up in a black neighborhood, and many people who talk about this subject have never lived in a black neighborhood. It's not about redlining that I saw, or anything that had anything to do with the government, the reason why black communities were suffering so much. It was culture and personal responsibility. There's no law that makes you not graduate from high school. That's a personal decision. There's no government law that thrusts you into selling drugs in your community. That's a personal decision. Unfortunately, black people, in my opinion, in these inner cities have adopted this culture that's destructive. And this has really no relevance. Now, let me give you an example of how I think that the overcorrection of what they call redlining, and this is what they do every time, caused the crash of the market. Because in, I guess, protests to redlining, they now gave non-discriminate loans to people who did not qualify. And what happened? We had a whole crash of the system. Black people were not defaulting on their loans at a higher rate than we've ever seen in history. And that's because they focus on race and we should be focusing on results. If you don't have a high credit score, you should not be able to get a particular loan. There's a lot of other things that are factored into this. Larry Elder wrote a really good piece. Thomas Sowell obviously wrote a really good piece. They both are very similar in their thought process here. They don't answer a lot of questions that go along with the behaviors of different people, right? They go, well, they give loans to white people at a better interest rate than they give to black people. What they don't ask the question of is that, are they equal in their financial situation? If you look at statistical data, white people have 30% more savings than black people do. When you go to get a loan, if you know anything about loans, they look at how much liquid funds you have. They look at what you have in your savings. They look at how much money you make. And then you have to negotiate.
Exactly.
Are black people negotiating to get a better interest rate? Or are they just taking the first thing that they get? All of these things are questions that need to be answered before you articulate that redlining is the problem.
Just because there's disparities doesn't mean there's inequality. Just look at the STEM fields, right? It's overly representative with Asians. Are we just going to have quotas on Asians now? I mean, we've talked about the equality of outcome thing enough on this channel. That's why it doesn't work. People choose different things. And in that book, Discrimination and Disparities, which I recommend, I also recommend Black Rednecks and White Liberals. He's got a ton of good ones. All this stuff is good. But he talks about discrimination and says that, yeah, sometimes there is discrimination, as if you're a big law firm, you might discriminate on where your students will come from, but not necessarily on their race. Sometimes you're discriminated on social economic class because maybe you didn't have access to certain things, but that could be white people too. That could be anybody.
Yeah. And
sometimes it's just the nature of things, right? In that book, he also talks about tornadoes. 90%, like the world's a big freaking place, right? And 90% of the tornadoes all happen in the US. That's just the way it is. The same way, it's just the way it is that men and women choose different career paths. If you leave them to their own desires, they will not choose the same thing. That's why men get paid more. It's not discriminatory. They just choose jobs that pay more. They'll generally choose jobs that are more scalable. They choose careers that are in the STEMs, science, technologies, engineering, mathematics. Yeah, great stuff. I suggest, if you've not read these books by Thomas Sowell, maybe you're not into reading. If you're somebody who works out at all, this is when I do a lot of my book listening. I listen to Audible all the time. I go on the treadmill. I'll do an incline walk for about 45 minutes, or I get on the bike or the elliptical, and I just listen to a book. And if you're into this type of content, these are books that you should just read, because Thomas Sowell is somebody who bases his books in facts, not feelings, like these white liberals. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that thumbs up button, consider subscribing to the channel, help it grow, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.
Exactly. I've learned a lot from Thomas Sowell, and I urge lots of people to learn from him, regardless of what your color is. And honestly, people are forgetting that there is discrimination, and discrimination is not relevant to your skin color. Even other places that people still look like themselves, there's still discrimination, and it's based on different stance. Let's talk about loan for a moment. People always talk about loans not given to black people, or loans are given to white people more. When you look at this, look at it on a basis level. Would you give something to somebody who you know is going to pay back? Would you lend your money to somebody who you know is going to pay back at the due time? Or would you rather give it to somebody who you know is not going to pay back at the due time? It's just thought processing. It's common sense. It's common logic. And also, who do you think would you give something that is more favorable? Let's say for employment or job role, who would you give the job that you think that is going to be productive? You're most likely going to give it to the person who, that would give you good return of investment or good outcome whatsoever, or that is going to make it worth it, because you are investing in this person. You want result, and the person is going to yield or give you result. People are outweighing the possible outcomes, but of course lots of people be like, as long as it's not favorable to them, then they're going to bring skin color to it. Discrimination exists everywhere, and it's just a common reality of things. Regardless, I mean, yeah, not to say racism does not exist, it does, but racism is not or should not be the center focus of some event or some things that happens. Discrimination exists everywhere, whether black, white, purple, pink, whatever you look like. It does exist, and is a common thing. but it shouldn't be grouped together as racism. There is disparity as well, but at the same time, it shouldn't be grouped as racism. But again, I always urge people to learn from Dr. Thomas Sowell, because I've learned a lot from him, and I encourage lots of people to learn history, the entirety of history, regardless of how hurtful or how hard it is. Learn it. You'll be doing yourself a favor, or you'll be saving yourself the stress of knowing that most of the things that you've been told, you've been lied to. You're not told the entirety of the truth of history. But this is interesting. Let me know what you think about this. I'm sure tons of people have interesting things to share. I really love your honest contribution. You can share the useful information you think might be really helpful. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and all of that stuff. And until next time, see you in the next video.